Every morning, before the sun even touched the city streets, Rafik put on his old orange uniform, picked up his broom, and quietly stepped out of his tiny house. The world was still asleep. Except for him, he was a street sweeper, the kind of man people passed by every day without even noticing. Yet, every corner of that city sparkled because of men like him. Rafik followed the same route each morning, from the school gate to the town square. He knew every crack in the pavement, every stubborn leaf, and every soft breeze that kissed the empty streets at dawn. But what he didn't know was just how cruel the world could be. Look at him, a group of boys laughed one morning as they walked past. Street sweeper. What a dirty job. Rafik didn't reply. He just smiled softly and kept sweeping, because long ago, he had promised himself he would never let someone else's words take away his dignity. Every day, shopkeepers would open their shutters and walk across the spotless pavement he had cleaned. Not a single thank you, but still, Rafik showed up, through the heat, the rain, and the freezing cold. Why? Because he believed, work is work. No job is small. Only the thinking is. His shoes were old and torn at the edges. His hands were rough. But his heart was stronger than anyone could imagine. When he came home in the evenings, exhausted but proud, he sat cross-legged on the floor with his young son, Ayatan, helping him with his homework. Study hard, Beta, he would say gently, his tired eyes shining with pride. So one day, you can make something more of your life. And remember, respect everyone, no matter their job. Ayatan listened carefully. Every word, every lesson. He saw how the world treated his father. But he also saw something far more powerful, how his father carried himself with quiet grace. Years passed. Ayatan grew up in that same narrow street where people mocked his father. But he carried his father's lessons like armor. He studied late into the night under the dim light of a kerosene lamp, while his father swept the cold streets at dawn to keep their home alive. There were days when Ayatan felt like giving up, when the money wasn't enough, when kids whispered about his father's job. But every time he saw Rafik, tired, yet unbroken, he found strength. Rafik never once complained. He only said one thing, Beta, greatness isn't in what you wear. It's in how you live. One day, an envelope arrived. Ayatan's hands shook as he handed it to his father. Rafik opened it carefully. He couldn't read every word. But he didn't need to. He understood everything. His son had been accepted into law school. Tears rolled down his dusty cheeks as he clutched the letter. Baba, Ayatan whispered, this is for you. Rafik hugged him tightly. And for the first time in his life, he allowed himself to dream bigger. Years turned into decades. The same street where Rafik once swept was now busy and modern. But the memory of his quiet work was still woven into every corner. And then, one bright morning, the entire neighborhood gathered outside the courthouse. People whispered in surprise as a young man walked in wearing a black robe. Ayatan had become a judge. The same boys who once mocked Rafik now stood in line, fixing their collars, trying to look respectable. And there, in the front row, sat Rafik. His uniform neatly ironed. His hands trembling. His eyes wet. The judge entered. Ayatan walked tall and proud. But before taking his seat, he stepped down from the platform. He walked straight to his father, bent down, and touched his feet. Everything I am, he said softly, his voice breaking, is because of you. The courtroom fell silent. Even those who once laughed now lowered their heads in shame. In that moment, they realized something they had ignored for years. Every great man stands on the shoulders of someone who worked in silence. Rafik didn't have riches, he didn't have status, but he had something far greater: dignity, honesty, and love. And that day, the man the world once ignored was the proudest man in the city. Moral of the story: never look down on anyone because of their job. True respect doesn't come from titles, it comes from how you live your life. Every role matters. Every person matters. If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because some stories have the power to change lives.